The stars no longer shone brightly. The universe had darkened in more ways than one, stretched thin by a virus that knew no mercy. It spread faster than light, tearing through planets, hollowing civilizations, and transforming lush worlds into toxic wastelands. No place was safe. It began as a whisper, a microscopic infection that soon became a deafening roar. The infected were no longer living beings. They were vessels, mere shells. The virus adapted, consuming all life, enslaving even the land. Cities that once pulsed with laughter and song were now hushed tombs, overrun by vines that pulsed with an eerie, unnatural energy. There was no cure. There was only fire. But fire alone wasn't enough. The virus could evolve, retreat into the shadows, and return with renewed fury. Survivors knew this all too well. They'd seen it happen before. After burning entire cities to ash, the virus returned. Relentless, patient, and they were running out of time. Dr. Alexis Munoz, a scientist turned scavenger, stood amidst the charred remains of what was once a thriving metropolis on their home planet, now reduced to dust. "We can't keep running," she muttered, her words heavy in the smoky air. The flames had done their job, yes, but they were not the final solution. The virus had already taken root deep beneath the land. The infection would spread again, and they knew not when or how it would return. But she had found something that might offer hope. Hidden away on Cerberus Prime, a remote station forgotten by most, was the key. Within its ruins lay research papers detailing the creation of terraforming particles. These particles had the potential to revive barren worlds, but they came with a critical caveat: they could only work on clean land. First, they needed to purge the planet, eradicate every trace of the virus through fire, before any recovery could begin. That was the first step: cleanse the land. Months passed in a relentless cycle of destruction, not against the virus itself, but against the very essence of life. They burned fields, forests, and salted the soil. It wasn't enough to eliminate the virus completely, but it was their only chance. The flames roared with hunger, as though they too were part of the war. It wasn't just fire, it was purification. It was destruction. It was mercy. But the virus was clever. It found new ways to hide, to grow, as the survivors fought on. The land twisted under its influence, mountains cracked, oceans turned toxic, and no place was safe. Still, they persisted. They couldn't afford to stop. Every day was a gamble. Each step toward Cerberus Prime's research center brought them closer to salvation, or doom. They worked in teams, spreading fire barriers and constructing sanctuaries from which the virus couldn't reach. Every victory felt hollow. Too many had fallen. In the land remained a twisted reflection of its former glory. Dr. Munoz often gazed skyward, her eyes weary, searching for a sign, anything, that would tell her this fight was worth it. But the sky remained empty. Chapter 3, The Terraforming Revelation. Cerberus Prime's facility had once been a symbol of hope, a place of potential for dying planets. But now, it was a tomb. When they finally reached the station, what they found wasn't what they had expected. The terraforming particles, once thought to be nothing more than a theory, were real. But there was a catch: they could only work on clean land. The virus, like a parasite, tainted everything it touched. But there was hope. A small sample, a seed. Dr. Munoz wasted no time. She activated the particles and scattered them across a patch of untouched land within the station. For days, nothing happened. It was as though they had placed their last hope on something that couldn't possibly work. Then, as though in response to a dying breath, life began to stir. At first, it was small, just a blade of grass pushing through the cracked soil. Then, more, small plants, flowers, creeping vines, reclaiming the land. The planet was responding as though it had heard the call to return to life. By the time the survivors regrouped, Cerberus Prime was no longer a barren wasteland. It was alive. Dr. Munoz stood at the edge of the revitalized forest, watching as trees stretched toward the sky. The soil had become rich, the air humbling with life. The transformation was not just physical, it was spiritual. "We've done it," she whispered, her voice carrying a fragility that didn't match the enormity of the achievement. It had worked, yes. But how much of the virus remained? How much more would they have to burn? Restoring the land wasn't enough. They needed more. They needed to understand the particles, how to replicate them, how to mass-produce them. Dr. Munoz pored over the data tirelessly, searching for answers. The particles were composed of a delicate balance of compounds, elements from the farthest reaches of space, nearly impossible to synthesize. Yet, they weren't impossible. They could be created. It would take time. It would cost them everything. They worked in secret, hiding their findings from the survivors who had already suffered so much. It was a dangerous gamble. But there was no turning back. The terraforming particles were their last hope against the virus, and they needed to spread them across the galaxy. As the days passed, a terrible truth began to emerge. It wasn't just the land that needed restoration, it was everything. The virus had tainted the very essence of life itself. The survivors were fighting a war on two fronts, against the virus, and against the very nature of life they had once taken for granted. It took years for the first world to be fully cleansed and restored. But when it was done, it was a world like no other. New ecosystems flourished. Species that had been lost were reborn, thanks to the terraforming particles. The survivors had reclaimed a planet, and with it, the last glimmer of hope for the universe. But they did not stop. They had learned to mass-produce the particles, terraforming barren worlds and reclaiming those on the brink of destruction. The process was slow, agonizingly slow, but steady. Dr. Munoz stood on the edge of a newly revived planet, watching the horizon. Her heart was heavy with the weight of what had been lost. The flames had burned their way to victory. The terraforming had worked, but the cost was immeasurable. They had saved a planet, a species, but at what cost? Decades passed. The survivors, once few and broken, now spread across multiple worlds. They had learned the hard truths of survival, the meaning of sacrifice. And they had learned that the fight was never truly over. Dr. Munoz stood in an observation room, her gaze fixed on the planet below. Cerberus Prime had been reborn. The flames had purified it. The particles had transformed it. And now, the universe was beginning to heal. But there was always more to be done. The virus had been driven back, yes, but the scars it left behind would never fade. The survivors had reclaimed the future. But it was a future forged in the darkest of times. The survivors had become confident, even proud. They had revived and repopulated countless worlds. Their systems were efficient, perfected by years of painstaking work. But then, a message came. It was from a distant, forgotten station, one deep in a star system once considered useless. The message was cryptic, filled with data they had never thought to decrypt. But when Dr. Munoz and her team cracked the encryption, they uncovered a sickening truth. A planet they had revived, a world known as Earth, wasn't just another forgotten world. It was the one they had thought lost. Thousands of years had passed since it was abandoned, and it had fallen to the virus long before they ever realized. The fires they had used to cleanse the land, they were the same fires that had consumed this planet in the first place before it was forgotten. It was no longer a distant memory. It was a renewed beginning, a seed from which life could bloom once more. But too late, the survivors learned the terrible truth. They weren't the first to fight the virus. This world had fought, and lost. The end. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed my video, please like and subscribe, and have a good day.